done it.
Right, welcome back to Henry Talks Bollocks. Tottenham are in the Europa League final. We were all there yesterday. And it was a very, very good day in Bodo. Not too much really going on, was there? But, I mean, there's a narrative in the fan base today that, or especially in Man United's fan base, that they're going to come and absolutely annihilate us. But we've got Johnny here and we've got Sean. Johnny, how are you? I know we've literally just come off of Sean's stream, but how are you feeling?
No, I'm all good, man. I mean, listen, I'm not going to lie, a little bit fragile today. If you're welcome. Just warn you, it will be Bodo skint. Okay, I don't know about Bodo's glint. The people are fabulous. The experience was unbelievable. It got a bit hairy at one stage, but 99.9% of the people were unbelievably friendly, and one little dick who wanted to have a fight with us all. But no, it was an amazing and emotional evening, and one I'll never ever forget. And despite being soaking wet, freezing cold, it was top draw. And couldn't have thought of anyone better than to experience it with you two guys last night.
Oh, it's nice of you, mate. Yeah, it was. Sean obviously fell in love out there. Go and check out Sean's match day vlog, and you'll see why. But Sean,
just super quick. And I know you both. I know you both have got like partners, and one of you's married, the other one's about to be and stuff. But like between us, I wasn't the only one who fell in love, right? Let's be entirely honest. Like those three birds were. Yeah, I mean, I think I can see those like animations, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit when the eyelashes go up and down, Tom and Jerry when the love hearts come out of the eyes. We were all a little bit enamored with the quality of the talent in Norway. No, it's okay. It's not a threat to your missus. You can acknowledge beautiful people when you see them. They're sensational. Sensational people.
Sean has been locked up. Sean has been locked up for quite a considerable amount of time, and we saw him chatting to a rather drunken 75-year-old woman slumped over who he thought was a Helga. No, joking aside, no, they were a very friendly bunch.
Three birds were absolute. They were smoke shows. Anyone who's watching this, go and check out the video that's titled Do. Guess Who Found His Helga? Just go and have a look, and you tell me if they weren't marriage material. Because I would have got down on one knee if it wasn't for the fact that I'd have been kneeing in a puddle because it was pissing with rain for 7 hours when we got there. I'm not that sort of guy. Well, I am actually. I'm spontaneous enough. Wonderful trip, wonderful day out. Great to first time in Norway. Didn't get to go seal clubbing. Didn't get to shake hands with a polar bear. And so the only disappointments really were those things, but animal related. But awesome day. Awesome. And Tottenham were in the final, mate. Tottenham were in the final. So.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at it now, and we're 90 minutes away from either our best season, winning a trophy in 45 years, or our worst season in Premier League history. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, if I would have said to you in August we would be 16th in the Premier League and in the Europa League final come the 9th of May, would you have taken it?
The interesting thing is, Henry, everyone was saying that at the beginning of the season. Would you take a trophy win and 17? No one actually thought that was going to happen. It's just something hypothetical to toss out there at the beginning of the season. And it's come true. And now we're living that hypothetical conversation that we had back in August and September. And I don't want to ever go through this again because it's been far too painful. But if the upshot is that we win the trophy, I'll take it, I'll celebrate it and pretend that everything happened in those other 23 games never happened. But I don't want to go through it or experience it ever again. That's it. I just want to go into the Champions League when we win it, go into the Champions League next season, spend the money, improve the squad, and let's talk about us having a good run in the Champions League and qualifying and being competitive for top 4, top 5, to get in there again.
Sean, I mean, I want to ask you. I mean, you for a long time.
Does the chat, just quickly, mate, does your live chat not show in StreamYard?
Yeah, I think so.
I can't see any live chat. It's very strange. Johnny, can you see the live chat in StreamYard?
No.
That's strange.
Don't matter. I'll get it up.
I don't know why that is.
I'll fight the Arsenal fans from the YouTube traditional version. That's fine with me. Let's get stuck in, boys. Let's get stuck in. You got a lot of Arsenal fans that watch this channel, right, Henry? So can we get
Liverpool fan?
Can we get some ones and zeros, please, from your chat? Right, 1 if you think that Tottenham will lift the trophy, 0 if you think that we will bottle it like Arsenal. Is that possible?
Yeah, put a 1 or a 1 if you think we'll win the trophy, or a 0 if you think that me, Sean, and Johnny are going to Bilbao for a waste of time.
The ones are coming in, mate. The ones are coming in. So your audience are smart, mate. They're smart men or women or Helgas.
Henry is an Arsenal fan, Sean. Yeah, big up to eBerg8. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, mate. Even Liverpool fans are saying 1. Can I ask you boys something? If we win the Europa League, I know we've heard this question 1,000 times. What do you think the atmosphere would be like if we keep Ange for another season after winning the Europa League?
I don't even think it's going to be 50-50, because I was speaking to the guys on the plane last night and I was doing my own survey. Our survey says, no way. Thank you very much, Ange. Been a pleasure. You go down in history, but we need to move on. We cannot go into the Champions League with this manager. I know I'm going to get slated for it, but I don't care, right? You're going to mix it with the best tactical football guys out there. We can't be going with Ange Postecoglou. We saw what he was like with Celtic. He was shocking in Europe. I've not seen anything really in Europe other than, look, let's be honest. We've beaten Elfsberg. We've beaten AZ Alkmaar, and we've lost to AZ Alkmaar. We've beaten Karabag, and we've beaten Bodo Glimt. Okay, Bodo Glimt twice, who are a Norwegian. What would they be? Top of League One, bottom Championship, lower Championship. Let's be realistic here, right? We've been fortunate. No team's dropping down, but I'm going to take it. I'm not going to, it is what it is. And if we go on and win it, but this manager is not good enough. He can't even outsmart Van Nistelrooy at Leicester. I mean, we've taken 1 point from Leicester. We've only taken 3 points from Ipswich. Not good enough.
1 point from Wolves.
Yeah, but we've taken 6 points from Manchester United and 3 points from Manchester United in the Cup, even though there's no points available in the Cup. This is what we're talking about here, right?
You're not, but Sean, let's be honest, right? You're not Angin, and you haven't been up until yesterday when he.
I'm not Angin. I'm not Angin. Yeah. I'm just saying that there's unknowns with regards Ange, right? And like I've always maintained, just on a principle of how I would like to see the world operate, that I think that if you earn it, you should receive it. And I think on a meritocracy basis, whilst I don't necessarily want Ange to be a manager of the football club next season, because I think they'll say it in the last show, I think there's a massive difference between being our quote unquote most successful manager in 45 years versus our best manager in 45 years.
Correct.
Best and most successful are two different things. I think Ange will be probably simultaneously, should we lift the cup in Bilbao, I think he'll probably be our most successful manager and our worst manager in 45 years, right? I think that's kind of where I'm at. However, there's a couple of things that I think are worth pointing out in the world, this scenario where Daniel Levy says, you know what, I'm going to lean into the fact that meritocracy prevails and he deserves it because no one else has done what he did. Pochettino didn't, Conte couldn't, Mourinho couldn't, yada, yada, yada. And that on that basis, we're going to give you another year. Even though I don't subscribe to that's my desire, I can understand if it happened. And if I was to make the argument for why that's not necessarily terrifying, is because there are some unknowns, right? One is we're starting to see an Ange Postecoglou that does seem to have a couple more tricks up his sleeve than just the one-track version of football. The other is, and I think it's a massive unknown, but it's also very relevant. You've got a team of people that are 23, 22, 21 in the most part, and you don't know, none of us do as Tottenham fans, what having a Europa League winners medal as a player will do to your character, your confidence, your belief in the system, your buy into the club, your buy into the manager. You don't know what that stuff, none of us do. We're only guessing here, but what it could do in terms of seeing a version of Ange that now has himself tested, experimented with, and seen the success of another version of football other than it's who we have always been, mate. He now has this with his own eyes. He said, "Okay, I've changed it up, and it's actually worked. That's important. That's an unknown." And then on top of that, having players that have got winners' medals around their neck, that's also important. I think it's an unknown around what sort of momentum that can bring into next season. So whilst I don't necessarily want Ange, regardless, if the club made the decision, I'd understand it, and I'd be curious to know what could happen next year. And I'm not someone that necessarily thinks that it's a fait accompli that the same thing will happen next season as happened this season in the league, and that he'll be gone by Christmas. I think it's probably more likely than not, but there's a chance that he'll do better.
Do you not worry about the Ten Hag effect? Because I certainly do. You know, Ten Hag looked to all sense and purposes that he was going to get sacked. He delivers the FA Cup. Oh, you know, it's he's won a trophy. He's won a trophy. How can we sack him? Exactly the same as what you're proposing here. I get it, but they then gave him a nice budget to go and spend on players that didn't perform, and he was gone by November. I'm just loath to give someone like Ange Postecoglou a massive budget should we make the Champions League, and you know we're sitting here in end of September or end of October. We can't win a game in the league. We're struggling in the Champions League because his talent ID is not good enough. I don't want to take that chance. I'd rather say to him, thank you very much for all you've achieved, but we have to reach higher. And Ange Postecoglou, I'm sorry, you know, him saying, you know, great coaches, better, so-called better coaches than me haven't got to the final of the Europa League. I mean, come on, man. Like, you know, you telling me you're a better coach than some of the people he's pointing the finger at here. Because he's not. Let's be honest, right? No teams come down from the Champions League. And as I said earlier, we've played very few good teams, right? Eintracht Frankfurt, Galatasaray, you know, Roma were pretty poor.
So Johnny, Galatasaray probably the best team we played.
Yeah.
Would don't disagree. I hear what you're saying. Just on the extrapolation of your narrative. I probably agree with you on this, if this is what you're saying, that the Premier League is just a massively bigger level than the Europa League is, right, generally.
Yeah.
On the basis, then, that you're leaning on that logic, you're leaning into the fact that the Premier League and our representation in that league is a far better barometer of where we are relative to our bread and butter competition than any Europa League Cup would suggest. Yeah. On that basis, then, can we assume that had Fulham, Wolves, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth.
I know what you're going to say.
Brentford, Brighton. Had those guys been playing in the Europa League season, Europa League this year, would they have made the final?
So you know what I said to you, Sean, and I've said it all along. It's not after the event; it's before the event. I said it before Frankfurt, and I said it before Bodo. These players will raise their game for this because there's so much more in it. It's part of being a successful cup team in Europe. You know, the European stage. It's funny how these players, I won't go into each and every one of them, who, you know, went MIA in the league, but suddenly we're having, you know, barnstormers in the Europa League, right? It's no coincidence. They self-motivate for these things. It's a chance of, you know, you talk about Ange having the chance to write his name in glory and immortality. It's the same for the players. You know, you go down to the Spurs now. They're still wheeling out players from the 1970s. You know, they're still wheeling out Martin Chivers and all the rest of it. These guys, when they come back in 15 years or whatever, when their career's finished, they'll be getting jobs at Spurs, telling the story about the glory years when they won the Europa League. That's what will happen. And they know it. And they know it's also a chance to put themselves in the European shop window, whether it be Romero, Bentancur, Kulu, whoever, rather than, you know, maybe not noticed. There's more chance of being noticed in a Europa League semi-final when the managers are sat at home with no other football to watch. The season's almost ended. You're putting yourself in the shop window. Same with the final. So
do you think someone just said in the chat, if we win the Europa, do you think Romero stays?
I think there's a lot more of a chance if, say, for example, we win it, he leaves, and we bring in Xavi. For example, I'm just throwing it out there. I think Romero will respect Xavi. I'm not saying he doesn't respect Ange, but when you're meeting a guy who's done it all at every level as a footballer, and he's telling them, you are the guy that I want. I'm going to make this club fantastic, and I want you to be my leader going forward. I think that could be a swing. That could be a game changer. You know, if you've got Thomas Frank coming in, it's not going to have the same effect, and I think he'll just leave.
Do you think, mate, looking at Romero's European performances, it's a completely different player to what we see in the Premier League?
This is what I'm saying to you. They're levels. He wants to be playing in the Champions League. He don't want to be sat 17th. Yes, he started the season terribly. And a lot of that was to do with the fact that he went straight from the end of the season, had a bit of row with the club because they wanted to take him to Australia to play Newcastle. And he needed to go and play in the
Didn't we lose that on penalties?
Pardon?
Didn't we end up losing that game?
I don't even remember what happened. It's a non-game for me. It's all about money. Meanwhile, he went, played 3 practice games, I think it was, for the Copa America for Argentina, went out there, played the whole tournament, won it again, and then he had 2 weeks holiday. He had 2 weeks of a holiday and straight back in training. And I said, you can't do that. He needs a proper rest and then a set up pre-season. But no, they brought him in. He didn't look himself, and then he got, he's had the injury.
Just quickly, I'm just looking back on my match day vlog, right? The fans celebrating with the players at the end. Because as soon as you mentioned Romero, Henry, I was like, I don't remember seeing Romero celebrating with the fans, right? And I was like, let me go back and see that. So, because I got obviously caught a lot of it on the camera. And I think for the first, like when you see Matisse Tell run over first, Udogi's is behind him, Richie then come into the crowd, and then everyone else join. Romero was way back, like an extra 40 seconds. I'm just looking at it. I've just watched it. 30, 40 seconds behind. I don't know what he was doing. He might have been like talking to someone or like saying, whatever, like doing maybe a quick interview. I've got no idea. But he was 40 seconds behind running over to the players. He stands in the background. He jumps onto Van der Ven's back, and then he does this for 5 seconds, and then turns around and walks back towards the centre circle.
And then you see the difference between Richarlison jumping in with the fans.
Yeah, and Richarlison. Yeah, so I don't know if you can read into that, but like
in too much into it, to be honest with you, because
you think the whole squad was dancing and that. He's again. I don't know why he was late. But but also for what it's worth, Vicario was late as well. So maybe the two of them are having a chat with whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, but you think we've travelled
late to the party was a problem? But he had literally 10 seconds of doing that from the back. Did that and then just turned around and walked off. That to me, I think is. I might be reading too much into it. Love to know if the chat think we are. Celebration Police. Rowan's already called me out for it. I'm just saying that I just wonder whether or not that's some sort of message that he. Again, maybe I'm inventing things here, but like, is there something there?
I don't want to hear anything about last night. As I said, when I came out, which I could barely speak when I came out of the stadium last night, when I was walking along the road, I said, I don't want to. It's not about who was great, who was bad, who did X, who did Y. All that's important is that we take this moment to celebrate and enjoy every minute.
The reason I'm not bringing it up to cause trouble, mate, Henry asked the question, is Romero going to stay if we win the Europa League? And I'm just saying that right there is, I think, something that you could look into and go, he didn't seem as bought in as the rest.
The tunnel at Wolves was a far bigger incident, in my honest opinion, where he'd had enough.
It's literally just come out from Sammy Mockbell saying that we're in talks with Fabio.
No, he's only about 2 weeks late to Johnny and I fucking talking about this for the last couple of weeks. People, catch up.
We've been talking about it. I've been talking about it.
Knockers.
Yeah,
I think he'll come in. That Paratici will come back if we win the Europa.
He's
I think
coming back anyway, mate.
He's
He's
got a
coming
big
back.
fucking job on his
What the
hands. if we
sticking
don't win
point,
it.
I reckon, is the conditions in which how much control he has. Because why would you come back to play the same role that you played before when a lot of that was underwritten or undermined when he had to leave to disappear for 2.5 years? I get it, his own fault. But then Daniel Levy went in a slightly different direction with Mann and Johan Lang and all that. And I just wonder whether or not, if obviously Levy really wants him back, but if I'm Paratici, I'd be like, I'll come back, but I want a little bit more control, especially as we don't yet know the futures of Mann or Langer. I reckon he only comes back on conditions that he has final say.
Do you think? I mean, people are saying this is comments come up from 4 different people on the on this stream. Terzic,
He's another power merchant. You
I don't want
go into look into his history, right? Interesting manager, certainly tactically diverse and dynamic, and changes the game more times, changes the tactics more times in like 15 minutes of a match than Andrew's changed in 2 years. But he's also someone that has eyes on bigger prizes, mate. Because he had like at Dortmund, they created a whole new role for him, where he was like a hybrid.
I don't want Terzic.
Not for me. It would be
Champions League run with Dortmund, but nah.
If I'm going abroad, I want the Bologna coach. If I'm going abroad, personally,
I mean, is Terzic better than Andoni Iraola? Is he better than Thomas Frank? Marco Silva, I'm telling you guys, is going to be the guy.
He ain't the guy.
I think that's who we're going to go for.
I'm going to clip this.
Clip it all you want. I think he's going to be the guy.
I miss streaming with you, Henry. The amount of clips that we used to get like clipped up was
brilliant. Are you just forever clipping?
Forever clipping.
Let's have a look. Hang on. Let's have a look at what the odds are. Who's the favourite? Wow. Andoni Iraola has a £10 million release clause in his Bournemouth contract.
Yeah. Can you see us buying it?
So we're not doing that. So there you go. There's another one ticked off. Silver's still there.
Same with Scott Parker.
Oh mate, I'm not having fucking honestly. Scott. I'd rather have Ange.
Come on.
He's more famous for doing a fucking straight
I'd rather have Neil Warnock. Come on.
I mean, what's he say? Towards Paratici, possible comeback. Tottenham are in motion through. Sources close have expressed caution. I mean, Xavi loves the youth. Terzic bottled the Champions League. I mean, he didn't really bottle it. You're playing fucking Real Madrid. Like,
all I know is we've invested millions in a youth system, okay, that under Paratici's turned around and changed dramatically. And we've still continued to invest, in 14, 15, up to 19-year-olds. And what would be the sense of appointing a manager that is not going to embrace any talent that comes through or try to nurture it? I want a manager like that, and Xavi is that guy. If we look at Iraola, look how he's improved players in that team. Look at Glasner, how he's changed Matetu, couldn't it, a barn door into what he is now. Look at Lequois, what's happened with him, and how Adam Walton is playing, and how Sarr has come back from losing his career, almost like going to obscurity, to come back and be a threat. That's what I want to see. I just want to see a manager come in who embraces the youth. And for me, if given a choice, I go for Xavi, then I go for Iraola. But how do we know what's in this guy's mind? None of us.
I'll read you out the odds on these 10 managers, right? So the outright favourite for Tottenham's next manager is Mauricio Pochettino.
What price?
At 10-3. Really? Marco Silva is second favourite at 6-1. Xavi is third favourite at 7-1. Thomas Frank is 9-1. Andoni Iraola is also 9-1. Kieran McKenna is 12-1. Oliver Glasner odds have been slashed dramatically down to 5-1. And then Inzaghi, Thiago Motta, and Edin Terzic are all in the 20s. Would you take Oliver Glasner at Spurs, Sean?
I would. Based on based on how he has progressed so many of that squad, and how he's improved players. I mean, I think he's improved Eze in some of the things that he does. You know, I see how, you know, they got rid of Anderson for big money and they bought in this Lacroix from Wolfsburg.
And he's never looked the same, has he?
No, right? He hasn't looked the same, and yet this Lacroix they bought in from Wolfsburg, you know, he's been outstanding. Tarek Mitchell has been better in his team, and Manuz, you know, he's been outstanding. I can see improvements across that whole team. Even Hughes, right? Will Hughes, who like is going nowhere. Even he's looked different class in games as well this season. So that's the sort of manager that I like. I like a manager that's visibly improving the players and the team.
Do you know what's interesting is Lacroix, how'd you say his name? What's his name?
I call him Lacroix.
Lacroix was a centre-back pairing with Van der Ven at Wolfsburg.
Yeah.
And if we were to bring in Oliver Glasner and Romero were to go, that would make perfect sense. Van der Ven's ex-centre-back pairing, a manager that knows the player. He's not going to be massively expensive. He's probably only 25, 30 mil, I'd imagine. Maybe a little bit more. And then you bring in Ratatata, John Philippe, Bodo, and
Mateta.
Yeah. Bring in them. I honestly, would you take Sean? What's your thoughts?
Ratatata, Jean-Philippe Mateta.
Would you bring in Glasner?
Yeah, I like Glasner. I don't mind him. He wasn't on my list before he went to Crystal Palace, right? And I think he wasn't on anyone's list before he's gone to Crystal Palace. And I think that is like another byproduct of like, you know,
he won in Europe, John. He won in Europe.
He did. I know. But I didn't hear any Tottenham fan mentioning his name ever before he came to Palace, right? So, like, yeah, but it's a demonstration of recency bias, isn't it? Let's be honest. Like, he's a good manager for sure. I wasn't like familiar with how he would adapt to the Premier League. He's done a really good job. But then once again, I'll always say this, and this isn't me poo-pooing the argument because I think recency bias obviously carries weight to some degree.
Is 2 season recency biased?
Yeah, because what I'm saying is that there wasn't a single person that wanted him. So just like no one wanted Iriola before he went to Brighton, no one wanted De Zerbi. I want to hear the thoughts of someone who knows about these people before they come to the Premier League and take a team that usually finishes 16th and then takes them to 7th or 8th and does a great job. And then everyone's talking about them like they've always been a love affair with these managers. I don't hear these names ever until they come and they do a good job taking a B Tech team to like a B plus A minus conversation. Like where are the like? I just feel like there's so much recency bias and local knowledge that starts with only the Premier League performances, and I will always refer back to where is the demonstration of a team that has taken a manager that's taken a team from perennially 15th to 8th that then goes and then gets his job, gets his chance at a higher club, and then takes that club and actually delivers success. The closest name that ever came to that was Pochettino, and there isn't anybody else that's done it. And then Pochettino went off to Paris and wasn't particularly spectacular. He won what he was going to win anyway, because everyone does. I just think that this notion that like let's always just look for the shiny new toy. Like I want to see these guys do it everywhere they've gone. And
how do you do that, Sean? That's my point. I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. But until you're there, look, they've come from a lower league. They come from Iriola. He's been thrown into the Bournemouth job, and he's in his second season, and we can see progression. We look at Glasner, who's won in Europe, who won the Europa League with Eintracht Frankfurt. He's come to Crystal Palace. We can see progression. He's done better. So there is a progression, isn't it? Isn't it his right? I hear what you're saying, but to say, for example, I can understand you say that about Iriola, but not so much Glasner, because he has done it and he's proved himself over a season.
There was not a single Tottenham fan that mentioned his name before he was at Palace, right?
No, well, he was mentioned because he won the cup with Eintracht Frankfurt.
I didn't hear a single Tottenham fan on any YouTube channel mention his name.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm telling you, he was spoken about because he was out of his job, and he'd won in Europe. So he was spoken about. So my point here is, though, I understand that conversation with Iriola, but less so about someone like Glasner. But you have to progress. How do you get to the top? You say this about Ange Postecoglou. Well, why is how did Ange Postecoglou get this job? Because he was with Celtic, who don't have any opposition. Rangers are still no opposition. Under Brendan Rodgers, there's still no opposition. In fact, they've done better probably than under him. So,
yeah, no, I wasn't. I mean, Ange Postecoglou was a new name to me. Like I don't, obviously I'd heard of him doing it in Scotland, but I just take that stuff with a pinch of salt. So like I don't. He was never going to be top of my list ever. But that's not because I was. I'm not playing Monday morning quarterback. He was never top. He wasn't even on my list because that wouldn't even register with me. I don't think Scottish football is. If you do something in Scotland, cool, but I think that there's levels, right? You're right. Glasner winning the Europa League certainly is different. But I'm just saying that in terms of the amount of times I hear YouTube channel members, content creators, talking about Glasner like it's an obvious known fact that we missed out on a trick there or whatever, and that he's the number one obvious choice. I think so much of that, just like so much of no disrespect, Henry, he's not aiming this at you, but like Mateta wasn't a name until this season because he's doing it. But you can make the same argument for what happened with Solanke last season, and then you go and sign Mateta, bring him in, and then he doesn't live up to the same expectations, just like Solanke hasn't. Or I actually think Solanke's done brilliantly well, to be entirely honest. But I just think there's so much recency bias, and whoever's the shiny new toy of the moment, whether it's the month, the season, the week, the day, whatever, the next week, everyone's talking about this guy like everyone's always been talking about this guy, and it's never the case. And it doesn't matter whether it's a defender, a player, a manager, a coach. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just whoever's in the headlines that day gets the attention. And I just think that we should all take a breath before we start, So
who'd you go for then, Sean? You were bigging up Terzic. He's never played in this league. I mean,
I wasn't bigging up Terzic. I said I've looked into Terzic. I've read about him. I think that he's a complex guy who has
criteria for if none of these guys are the right guys because they've not done it and they've only been here 5 minutes. And
I'm certainly not saying that. I'm just answering the question in isolation. I've had conversations recently with people who say, kind of like the counteract to what the argument is with someone like, an Iriola. The counter option is the only people you can go for are Inzaghi's or Xavi's or whoever, because they come from a brand, or Conte's, those sorts of names. Because I would challenge that narrative at the same time without trying to do double talk here and say, how if all you ever want are people that are proven winners, then that limits your options as well, right? I'm just saying I don't know, but I don't know. Like if Brighton found De Zerbi, right? Brighton found De Zerbi. No one had heard of De Zerbi. He came in and took on the baton from Graham Potter and did really well. There are these managers out there, but I'm not paid $500,000 a year by a football club to go and identify these players. There's other clubs can do it. I'm not saying that that's the way to go, but I'm just saying that like I would like to hear people that talk so confidently about people like Glasner to also like if they know football that well and they're so confident in the argument, then where's the De Zerbis of where's the next De Zerbi? I don't hear those people say. All I ever hear is people talking about whatever's the recent shining toy. Is my point.
My point here is if we suddenly sign Freddie Bassitio, right, otherwise known as Freddie Bassett, right, to be our new manager, and everyone goes, "Who the fuck's Freddie Bassett?" Right? No one knows him. Oh yeah, well he's a top thing. We've looked at him. His stats are unbelievable. Everyone's going to go mad, right? What
about that guy? There was the guy Marcelo Gallardo, right? The Gallardo in River Plate, right? Everyone was talking about him.
I was one of them, Sean, right? And I don't deny it. He was my number 2 behind Slot. Now, why was it? Because I'd read a lot about him, right? And it was one of my dreams to go to River Plate and watch that v Boca Juniors, and the history of how he plays this attractive, exciting football, blah blah blah. Right? Okay, it didn't happen, but he was still on my list because I was looking for something a little different. I wanted a creative manager who thought out the box, who changed it up and played exciting brand of football. That's what all fans want. But, you know, is it wrong? Is it wrong to want a name? You know, if we get rid of Ange, you know, really, is Marcus Silva or Thomas Frank going to appease fans? Or is
Thomas
someone
Frank, I think more so. I think Silva won't. I think Marco Silva won't, because he's had recently he's done well at Fulham, but he was dog shit. You know, wasn't he? Let me know your thoughts, guys. But like in his previous incarnations at Everton or whatever, he didn't do anything, right? And he had money spent on him. I don't know. Marco Silva for me. There's a few guys who work in my local co-op who are massive Fulham fans, and I say to them, "What do you think about the Marco Silva?" And they say, "You'll meet half the fan base that won't do anything but lick his underside of his yeah." They'll derelict his balls because he is you know, because they can't do anything wrong in his eyes. But then the other half of the fan base get incredibly frustrated with him. I don't think he'll satisfy Tottenham fans. I think that it all depends on what happens with the Europa League. It all depends on, we'll see what the club decision makes. As I said before, I don't want him to stay, but I can understand if the club go in that direction. I don't want that to be the case. I would love to see Paratici come in and have a relationship where he can leverage something and manifest something of a real note where you have balance, and that manifests into football that scores goals and also is not completely, abdicating to sort of defensive contemplation. And I think there's a manager out there. I know he's in the final of the Champions League, so there's a massive argument as to why would he come to Tottenham. But ultimately, it's money. Money is the biggest driver of why people move companies, countries, clubs, whatever. It's always about that. And I think that Tottenham can offer him, and I'm talking about Inzaghi, of course, and what else can he do? Inter Milan, like what after the Champions League? Like sometimes it's better to leave the party at the peak of its powers rather than waiting until you saw everyone sloppy at the end. And I just feel like maybe there's a chance there with Paratici's relationship. 100%. I don't know if it will happen, but if you gave me my first choice, it's Inzaghi for sure. Second choice, I'm interested now in a guy who I think can develop young players and has a proven pedigree of getting the best out of young. That to me is absolute number one priority. I will even go down the pecking order. I think I see Lord Rodney Trotter saying, again, who do you want, Sean? You've just filtered out everyone. I haven't. I'm just saying, all I'm challenging is the notion of recency bias. That's all I'm doing. There's plenty of managers that I'd be okay with. Plenty of managers that I'd be like, okay, untested at this level. I personally would love to see Inzaghi. It might be a long stretch, but we'll see. It's much more likely to happen if you have the Europa League sewn up, and we'll see what happens there. I'm okay with Xavi. He's got a youth pedigree. I'd love to see Pochettino, but I understand that that's incredibly difficult because he's not coming in all likelihood before the World Cup finishes. And even then, when the World Cup finishes in July, there's not enough time for next year's preseason. So that becomes problematic. Like none of it is a slam dunk obvious option for me. But my number one pick would be Inzaghi, given the reality. Xavi would be number two. I'd be okay with Thomas Frank, but I would imagine that Thomas Frank in 18 months' time would also be under the same pressure.
And you and Henry, right? Are we all in agreement that the most important thing is that the manager comes in here and is willing to embrace the youth talent that we have?
Yeah, it's essential.
Right? More so than having the big name who's only interested in his name and the preservation of his name and reputation, not wanting to, because for me, that's the most important thing. I want a forward-thinking coach that is going to embrace our academy kids and bring them through over the next 2 or 3 years.
Willingness or whatever, youth adaptation, youth embracement is the word I'm looking for. Embracing the youth is more important to me than anything else. So, like, if you can find me a manager, and like I say, I don't know if there's a manager out in fucking Slovenia who's done amazing things and plays 17-year-olds and outperformed to ridiculous levels. I don't care if we found him. I'll get on board it, but I'll wait and see what the shortlist is. But yeah, youth prioritization, given where we're at, what we're doing, and how much money and focus and pivoting towards that whole approach, there is absolutely no point in getting on board someone that has no track record of really embracing youth. And so Xavi, I agree with Johnny. Xavi's not a bad shout in that regard.
Can I just say, guys, sorry, Henry, it's just I've loved being on, mate. I wish I had more time, but I'm going to have to go.
Yeah, no,
We'll get on another time, guys. Enjoy the show. Thanks for putting up with me, and look forward to speaking to you next time, guys. We'll speak later. Yeah.
Cheers, Johnny. Love you, man.
Follow Johnny on all the socials.
Cheers, mate. Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Take care, mate. Look, I think if we want to prioritise youth, I think it wouldn't surprise me if we looked at someone like Thiago Motta.
Another name. Yeah, interesting. He's done a really good job over in Italy before he got let go. Out of contract, out of work, I believe. Right, he's not employed right now.
Yeah,
so
him and Edin Terzic, I think, will be two of the managers. I think the five will be Terzic, Motta, Frank, Iriola, and Xavi. I think those are the five managers we'll go for. The top of the tree, I think, will be Xavi. Pedigree of winning trophies, pedigree of bringing youth players through. I mean, now we've got a player like Mikey Moore and he can't even get minutes.
Well, again, mate, like I've said this before, I don't think he has done anything. I've been at the risk of repeating myself. Like, if you're good enough, you're old enough. But I think Tottenham fans have this bias towards his performances, whereby they think that he. Again, I'm not suggesting that anyone else has really taken that position and commanded it on the left or in the centre or the 10 or whatever. I think it's been just a bunch of different degrees of poor, really. But I would make the argument that Mikey Moore, if you're good enough, you're old enough, fine. You're in the first 11 squad. At that point, you have to then be compared to everybody else that's fighting for your position, right? And that doesn't, like, age is irrelevant at that point. Whether you're 17 or 27, I don't care. It's who offers the most value to your team. And I've seen enough from Mikey Moore to think that he's capable at this level, for sure. And I've got absolutely high hopes for his future. But if people are out there trying to make some sort of claim that he is head and shoulders deserving of first team minutes ahead of other players in that team, I'll challenge that narrative. I don't think he's been okay. He's been good in moments. He's been bad in moments. And I think that's the same that you can make the argument for everybody else as well. But I think on balance, if you're ignoring youth and the fact that he's one of our own, because that shouldn't really come into it when you're picking your first team, then I just don't think he's been. He might have deserved more minutes than he's gotten, but I don't think he's deserved to be like, a first team starter. I don't think he's ready yet. Really, I think he's in contention, but I think I wouldn't loan him out. I'd keep him around. But yeah, I don't think
you in the Championship could do him so well, getting regular game time.
Oh, I think if you put him in the Championship, he'd tear it up. Right? You look at Manor Solomon, and you kind of go. I mean, I think Manor Solomon's a bang average player. I think he's all right, but he's better than Championship level. But he's
22 goal contributions in the Championship last season.
Yeah, no, he's had a really good season in the Championship. But let's remember that the three teams that are the best three teams in the Championship every year who come up, they go straight back down and they get barely more than like 15 points. So there's a massive level drop, but level gap, game changer, right? And when players that are attacking offensive threats, like he is for Leeds, are banging in goals, and Leeds are doing enough to be able to win the title, and yet in all likelihood they're going to go straight back down next season. I think we need to be conscious of that gap before we start thinking that Manor Solomon is head and shoulders above anybody else at Tottenham Hotspurs in our winger selection, our criteria. I think it's just a wild. I think Mikey Moore would smash it in the Championship. It doesn't mean that he's good enough. He's going to smash it in the Premier League. I think the same for Odebear. It'll be the same for a lot of those players, right? Like, there's a question marks about how good they are in the Premier League, but in the Championship they kill it.
It's going to be interesting to see how we deal with. Oh, hang on 2 seconds. I've got someone at the door. Hold the fort, Collie.
That's nice, isn't it? Here amongst some Tottenham fans and a load of Arsenal fans. I'll tell you what, if there's any Arsenal fans watching, I was watching Dan Potts. I like Dan. He's a good guy. Worked with him last year quite a few times, and Lee Judges. And I was looking at a show with, I think it was released, a clip of it at least was released this morning, with Egal and Lee Gunner. Mr. Oversimplification of football. He loves to call things binary, right? If you win a season with a trophy is success. A season without is failure. He always bags out fans for having low standards, as though somehow expectations of things that are outside of the control of the fan somehow represent whether you have a winning mentality or otherwise. It's just ludicrous logic. But when he calls out Igal for having shit standards, but then him and his mates were saying on that stream were saying, you know, you'd rather be in the Europa League because you've got a chance of winning it than being in the Champions League if you're not going to win it. I mean, it's just that to me is just like it's just wild that that people can make that logical argument when they spend their lives telling everybody to raise their standards. It's crazy. Yeah, to each their own, man. You know, unfortunately, it's very easy to predict the losing lottery numbers in life and very difficult to predict the winning ones. And so if you're a fan of football and you want to be right, then leaning into the negatives of your football club is an easy way of benefiting and taking dividends from the most likely outcome, which is failure. If you consider a season without a trophy to be failure, then bag on your club and you'll be right more often, and then you can rub the ego. It's not for me, but you know, it is for a lot.
Big up, Dan. Yeah, I don't want to talk about the Newcastle game. I don't want to talk about that one bit. Rich says, more importantly, did Sean find his Bodo princess?
I found someone that I would happily make my princess. I found 3 actually, and you know, there was a lot of the comments. A lot of the comments were like, "Wow, the brunette Heidi, I think her name was an absolute," and she was a smoke show. And then the other lady, whose name was, I think, Maria, she was a smoke show. There was very little attention given to the first girl because she didn't get much airtime because Johnny was drunk and was like aiming the camera this way. But if you go back and watch the first couple of seconds, what's that?
Yeah, the stability of a baby deer holding that bloody
Bambi on camera duty, not ideal. But that the other lady, I think her name was Marina or Mana or something. You go back and watch that video. You get to see those eyes when she looks up in the first couple of seconds, mate. Like eyes that light up a room. All 3 of them could have been my princess. I would have more than happy, Henry, more than happy to take any one of those home in the overhead compartment. You know, in fact, I would have given her your seat, mate. You know, I'd have shoved you up there with your passport. Where was your passport, by the way, mate? Where was your passport?
On the floor in the plane as I fell out. Like I fell when I went back in there. I ended up falling over, and then when I fall over to pick my phone up, it was next to me.
Was the plane empty at that point? Was there still someone on?
No, there were still people on laughing at me. Yeah, it's horrendous.
Sensational.
But look, I wanted to do just a quick 50 minutes. In terms of this weekend, I'm going to watch along for the Palace game. Are you going to the Palace game?
Yeah.
And then we got Villa on Friday night. Are you going Villa?
It's away, isn't it?
Yeah, Johnny's got tickets, I think.
I won't go to that now.
It's a long way on a Friday night, though, isn't it? Yeah,
but Birmingham, mate. So just a couple of. You know what? I'm not sure. No disrespect to people with Birmingham accents, but even if I was to meet like prime Rachel Bilson from like the OC days, I'm not sure if she was like, you know, you're right there, mate. Oh, Sean, you're sort of good-looking boy. Lord, you're a really good-looking boy, though, aren't you? I don't know if I could marry prime Rachel Bilson if she spoke to me like that. The Brummie accent's just a little bit grating after a while. No disrespect, Villa fans. But also, I know you're a big fan of Villa on this channel. Right? I know you're trying to harness the Villa fan. I get it. And I know you and Savra have been talking about Villa like the grass is that much greener for so long. And I get it at the moments in time. It looks like it might be. We'll see, by the way. But Villa are quietly becoming a real, there's a rivalry that's beginning to emerge with Tottenham and Villa, right? They're kind of trying to eat our lunch a little bit in that kind of 6th spot in the Big 6 conversation. And then the Matty Cash thing, what he did to Matt Doherty, what he did to Bentancur. Now you got the game that was postponed or wasn't going to be postponed because Villa are trying to destroy our successes. Like, just quietly, I'm starting to hate Villa almost as much or more so than I hate the other boys in claret and blue, West Ham, because West Ham are largely irrelevant and can't even take their own FA Cup final seriously against us last weekend. But I think most of the reason why I hate Villa is because of you and Sava.
Yeah, I mean, that Villa game is going to be very, very, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. But yeah, I mean, what are you, other than like the game, what have you got coming over content wise over the weekend?
Content wise, I don't know. Sean talks bollocks on the transfer rumours. And...
That's what you should change your channel to. But look, I'm going to wrap up because I'm absolutely cream crackered. And like 5 hours kip. So we will see you all in the next one. Sean's channel is pinned in the description. So if you're not already coming over from Sean, go over to Sean and subscribe. Johnny's details will be in the description. And yeah, we're on the way to Bilbao, boys. See you all soon.
Bye.